Episode 1. The Chance Encounter. Introducing the Eccentrics. 1. Dayton, Ohio, is not generally known for cosmic revelations or flamboyant intellectual gatherings. If anything, it's known for aviation history, a decent football culture, and a rural suburban sprawl. In a cramped, dimly lit studio apartment abutting the screech of a major highway lived two men certain they were on the cusp of changing the world. These men, Preston Prez Carlyle and Jameson J. Bissett, were middle-aged in the chronological sense, but somehow adolescent in their enthusiastic devotions. If you saw them in the aisles of the local superstore, you'd think them disheveled, possibly unemployed, and in dire need of a haircut. You wouldn't guess they carried conspiratorial secrets in their hearts that would eventually draw in thousands, maybe millions. Second president, tall and angular, had a ceaseless energy that manifested through wild gesticulations, especially when expounding on subjects like UFO abductions, telepathy, or the existence of ancient amphibian gods. For him, conspiracies were not mere hobbies. They were living, breathing mysteries, woven into every layer of existence. He had once, at 15, convinced half his high school that a monstrous salamander deity lurked in the football field's pond, a teenage prank that somehow escalated into a local legend. Ever since, he wore the memory like a Boy Scout merit badge, proof that the human mind, if sufficiently primed, would accept almost any narrative. 3. Jay was softer spoken, yet equally unwavering in conviction. A comparative religion graduate who'd grown weary of standard jobs, he had developed a conspiratorial lens through which he interpreted everything from the arrangement of utility poles to the ticket stubs of an old movie theater. He saw patterns in mundane data, found esoteric meaning in random numbers, and always suspected that behind the veneer of normalcy lay a hidden dimension of cosmic significance. While Prez was the thunder, Jay was the drizzling rain, relentless, patient, seeping into every crack and waiting for the foundations of conventional thinking to dissolve. 4. Their hideout, one could hardly call it an office, was a symmetrical explosion of clutter. Dog-eared paperbacks like alien overlords in the modern age and hidden frequencies. The God signal was strewn across second-hand tables. Their walls, once a neutral beige, had become an accidental collage of pinned articles, yellowing newspaper clippings about cryptid sightings, scrawled quotes from the Bhagavad Gita or the Book of Revelation, and screenshots from fringe forums. If order existed, it was known only to them. 5. Late one evening, or perhaps it was early morning, Prez paced the apartment in a delirium fueled by coffee and cheap energy drinks. He had just discovered a bizarre forum post. "We're living in a cosmic beta test. God is a gamer who rarely logs in, occasionally patches reality, then disappears." Stunned by the post's audacity, Prez read it aloud in his best imitation of a 1950s sci-fi narrator. 6. Jay's eyebrows rose. He was used to weird theories. The living inside a black hole hypothesis, the flat Earth with hidden realms movement, the pineal gland Stargate conspiracies. But something about this gamer angle resonated. "A cosmic developer," Jay said, tapping a pencil against his lip. "It's a new spin on simulation theory." 7. They were well versed in the mainstream form of simulation theory, the idea that advanced post-humans or aliens might be running complex computer sims in which we unknowingly play a role. Yet the notion that a single cosmic gamer occasionally logged in, tinkered around, then logged off with a half-hearted wave had an extra ring of comedic absurdity. And comedic absurdity was precisely the domain where Prez and Jay thrived. 8. After bantering for half an hour, they realized the notion might unify hundreds of their favorite conspiracies and paranormal claims. The biblical plagues? A developer entertaining themselves with a special event patch. Sudden UFO waves over specific areas. Some bored cosmic user messing with the alien expansion pack. Miracles at religious sites? Another Easter egg dropped into the code. The more they discussed it, the more it seemed both ridiculous and strangely plausible. Fueled by mania, they started sifting through history, scanning records of miraculous events: Fatima's miracle of the sun, the dancing plague in medieval Europe, the bleeding statue phenomena in Catholic shrines. They pinned each on a timeline to see if any correlation emerged. Predictably, the timeline looked like a child's scribble. It was impossible to see a simple pattern in thousands of disparate events. 10. Yet they noted that many alleged miracles occurred during times of collective prayer or intense communal focus. Prez seized on that. Large crowds, united in one thought, might be like an alarm clock that rings in the cosmic gamer's realm. They log in, cause some improbable glitch, and vanish. Jay nodded, as if the idea was downright rational. The formative theory. 11. They dubbed it the Cosmic Random Intervention Model, or CRIM, though it took them nearly a week to settle on that name. Prez liked divine beta glitch hypothesis, while Jay proposed unpredictable intercession theory. They compromised on CRIM, believing it sounded delightfully clandestine. 12th. Crim asserted that reality was coded by an absentee developer who rarely stepped in, but when they did, they manifested as minor or major glitches. The triggers for these user interventions were unclear, but communal mental focus, prayer, meditation, chanting, seemed to coincide with the phenomena. 13. They suspected these random miracles or anomalies were so infrequent that scientific methodology failed to capture them. After all, a scientist can't replicate a UFO landing or a statue crying blood at will, so these remain in the realm of anecdote. But anecdote, Prez insisted, is just data with no statistics. 14. They ventured onto YouTube to share their brand new theory. Propped up by coffee, they recorded a rambling hour-long video titled "Proof We Live in a Cosmic Beta Test, the Transcendent Gamer Theory." Prez, in high-octane mode, ranted about centuries of recorded miracles, while Jay calmly added cross-references. In 1957, a small church in Brazil reported glowing lights during a mass exorcism. Interestingly, it coincided with a local festival where thousands were praying. It was messy, earnest, bizarre, and soon to be the talk of certain internet corners. 15. After uploading, they posted it in UFO forums, occult boards, and every fringe subreddit they could find. For a week, it languished at 100 views. Then, unexpectedly, a moderately popular New Age influencer discovered it. She raved about the transcendent gamer concept, calling it the ultimate ascension path. Her enthusiastic endorsement triggered an avalanche of views. By the end of the next week, the video had over 100,000 hits, half of them from bemused or outright mocking onlookers, the other half from true believers seeking fresh cosmic revelations. 16. Their channel ballooned. Yet with notoriety came the trolls. Debunkers, skeptics, and comedic responders hammered them. You guys must have microwaved your brains. This is the best science fiction premise of the year. CIA stooge disinformation. Comments poured in like an unstoppable flood. Unfazed, Prez pinned a comment. Stay tuned for real data, folks. The cosmic code is about to unravel. Jay's quiet confidence, overshadowed by Prez's brashness, only deepened the mystique. 17. Then came a series of emails from someone named Cambridge Truth Seeker, who claimed to be a researcher in chaos theory interested in their data. Prez was ecstatic. Jay was cautiously optimistic. Maybe we've attracted an actual scientist, he murmured. Or maybe it's just a troll. 18. The next surprise was that a small but fervent group of viewers began posting their own experiences, strange anomalies that aligned with prayer vigils or large meditation events. Random cell phone malfunctions, localized electromagnetic disturbances, gadgets glitching at pivotal moments. Most of them were easily explained away, but a precious few resisted normal explanations. 19th. Encouraged, Prez and Jay hammered out spreadsheets of correlated data. They had no illusions about their lack of formal analytical training, but they forged on with the enthusiasm of explorers, unburdened by professional caution. They reached out to local scientists, emailing them about Crim. Almost all replies were dismissive, if not outright insulting. One professor told them flatly, "Your cosmic gamer is about as plausible as a teenage mutant ninja turtle dimension." Undeterred, they pressed on. 20. Then, Cambridge Truth Seeker wrote again, requesting their raw data. "I have a background in chaos theory," the mysterious contact said. "I might see patterns you've overlooked." With a mixture of excitement and desperation, they granted him access. Episode 2. The Cambridge Mathematician. Enter Dr. Elliot Braithwaite. Irubati Wondram Dr. Elliot Braithwaite was a mathematician at Cambridge University who specialized in the complexities of chaos theory and nonlinear dynamics. Tall, bespectacled, and possessing a meticulous mind, Elliot had spent years modeling phenomena like turbulent airflow and stock market crashes. He held a deep curiosity for fringe questions, though he approached them with a tempered, scientific caution. Late one evening, while procrastinating on departmental paperwork, he stumbled upon Prez and Jay's bombastic video. 22nd. Intrigued by their Crim timeline, Elliot was skeptical, yet oddly mesmerized by the possibility that large-scale human focus could correlate with improbable events. He had read about prior parapsychology experiments, random number generators responding to mass consciousness, for instance, but had never found definitive proof. Nonetheless, he felt these rumors always deserved a closer look, if only to rule them out rigorously. 23. With cautious excitement, Elliot reached out anonymously. He didn't want a wave of academic derision at Cambridge, especially given the flamboyance of Prez and Jay's claims. He politely requested any data they had: miracle stories, timestamps, location details. To his mild surprise, they responded almost instantly, giving him access to their entire CRIM dataset. 24. Over the next few weeks, Elliot found himself immersed in a carnival of weirdness. The data was raw, messy, and unstructured. Forum screenshots, personal anecdotes, questionable news clippings, Excel sheets with columns labeled miracle vibe or prayer intensity. Yet he saw glimmers of order. In about a dozen cases out of hundreds, there were well-documented group events, prayer rallies, meditation sessions, etc., that coincided with minor but statistically improbable phenomena: odd electromagnetic readings, abrupt meteorological changes, or synchronistic electronics failures. 25. Elliot's initial approach was purely statistical. He wanted to see if the improbable events correlated with times of collective mental focus more often than chance would allow. After cleaning and standardizing the data, he ran a battery of tests. The results were mostly negative. No correlation jumped out in the majority of cases. But a tiny fraction, less than 5%, showed a correlation that flirted with statistical significance. 26. He nearly dismissed it, but decided to dig deeper into those outliers. They all involved a specifically directed focus, like chanting or prayer, that explicitly invoked a higher power or cosmic force. Intriguingly, some were religious in nature, others more New Age or meditative. The unifying thread was the explicit invocation of something outside normal reality. 27. Next, Elliot cross-referenced these events with background data: weather records, local power grid anomalies, cosmic ray flux. He tried to see if a real-world factor explained it. Was it a solar flare? An unusual electromagnetic spike from industrial machinery? In a few cases, yes, that explained the anomalies. But in others, he was left perplexed. The phenomenon remained a small statistical quirk, not game-changing proof. Still, the anomaly tugged at him. 28th. Intrigued, he emailed Prez and Jay with a careful summary. I see a minuscule effect that might be real, but we need a controlled experiment, he wrote. The duo, undeterred by caution, interpreted it as partial validation. They promptly recorded a new, overexcited YouTube video. Cambridge scientist finds proof of cosmic gamer. Elliot cringed when he saw the title. He sent them a somewhat exasperated note clarifying that proof was far too strong a word. They apologized, but the sensationalism was already out. 29. Meanwhile, reaction from the academic community was swift and mocking. Popular science blogs ridiculed Prez and Jay's claims. A snarky article titled "Crank Theorists Enlist Chaos Mathematician in Video Game God Quest" made the rounds on social media. Eliot's colleagues at Cambridge teased him. The phrase "video game god" became a staple joke around his department. 30. Despite the ridicule, Eliot resolved to push forward. Something in his gut, perhaps a romantic part of him that loved the improbable, whispered that there might be a genuine phenomenon hidden in the data's noise. If so, it was subtle, defying easy measurement. But chaos theory had taught him that subtle forces sometimes shape entire systems under the right conditions. A curious exchange. 31. Eliot and the duo began exchanging more data. Encouraged, they decided to set up a formal experiment. Eliot proposed harnessing an online random number generator, RNG, and inviting participants to collectively focus on altering its output at predetermined times. Dubbed Project Omega, it would serve as a modern version of older global consciousness experiments, only now with the explicit idea of pinging the cosmic gamer. 32. The plan. Publish the RNG code openly, stream the results in real time, and invite volunteers to chant or pray at specific intervals, trying to nudge the random distribution. If results showed a shift correlated with mental focus, it might be the first step toward real data. Of course, Eliot pointed out that even success might not prove an external gamer. Psychokinesis or other factors could be posited. But it was a start. 33rd. Prez loved the idea. Jay was more cautious, worried about potential sabotage or trolls. What if people spam the code with attacks to create false positives? He asked. Eliot reassured him they'd secure the system with basic encryption. They launched a test site. For 2 weeks, a small group, mostly their YouTube followers, tried daily sessions. The results? As expected, purely random. No significant deviation. 34. Then, on the 9th day, an uncanny spike appeared, a run of ones that defied normal probability. Eliot's rational mind told him random processes sometimes produce surprising streaks. But 2 days later, a run of zeros occurred, equally improbable. Though these were isolated events, the community latched onto them as cosmic answers. Skeptics howled about the law of large numbers, insisting that eventually improbable streaks would appear if one ran enough tests. 35. Eliot noted that these odd spikes happened during collective focus sessions referencing the transcendent gamer. The correlation wasn't bulletproof, but it was eerie. He stayed neutral, explaining to Prez and Jay that random anomalies can cluster. They, however, took it as near confirmation of CRIM. Scientist dismissal. 36. Emboldened, the pair tried to involve more scientists, hoping mainstream endorsement might follow. Instead, they faced near-universal rejection. An especially humiliating meeting with a local physics professor ended with him remarking, "Please use your intellect for something more productive." Another refused to even look at their data, citing a lack of any plausible mechanism. 37th. Eliot sympathized. Mainstream science has little patience for phenomena that can't be consistently replicated in controlled conditions. Still, he was convinced that ignoring odd data was poor scientific practice. He found himself in an intellectual no-man's land, too open-minded for the academic mainstream, too cautious for the flamboyant fringes. 38. While the duo reeled from repeated rejections, a quiet email from someone called Artemis arrived in Elliot's inbox, hinting at clandestine experiments and cautioning him that your line of inquiry has powerful adversaries. Elliot's curiosity piqued. He had no idea who Artemis was or whether they had legitimate credentials, but the message contained enough obscure references to quantum anomalies that it felt authentic, or at least cunningly so. 39. Meanwhile, Project Omega's website grew in popularity. Chat rooms buzzed with personal miracle stories. Some were laughably trivial, like someone whose coffee machine beeped oddly during a chant. Others were more puzzling. Participants claiming simultaneous device glitches or unexplainable power flickers. It was anecdotal, unverified, yet collectively tantalizing. 40. Despite mounting ridicule, the tide was pulling them deeper. None could foresee just how tumultuous those waters would become. Episode 3. The Unfolding Experiment. Designing the Trial. 41. Encouraged by the pockets of weirdness, Elliot, Prez, and Jay doubled down on Project Omega. They coded a more sophisticated RNG, using quantum fluctuations from an online quantum sensor as an added source of unpredictability. They set up scheduled focus times each day, inviting the global audience, now in the thousands, to log on, chant, pray, or simply intend the RNG to deviate from 50-50. They also asked participants to keep notes on any personal anomalies they experienced during or immediately after these sessions. 42. To reduce any chance of data tampering, they published the source code on GitHub, invited a volunteer cybersecurity expert from Norway to audit it, and even introduced a second backup RNG fed by a different quantum source in Canada. If the cosmic gamer existed, it would have to glitch both data streams simultaneously to show a clear signal. 43rd. Early results were again underwhelming. The distribution remained statistically normal for days, yet the participants seemed undeterred, with some attributing the lull to the cosmic gamer's unpredictability. Then, in one session, the Canadian RNG logged a run of zeros that soared beyond 1,000,000 to 1 odds. The Norwegian security expert confirmed no hacking. Elliot was astonished, but refused to jump to conclusions, pointing out that improbable events can still happen purely by chance. 44. Around the same time, the website chat room exploded with stories from participants. Lights flickering, random phone resets, pets acting skittish. The rational explanation was shared psychological expectancy. People look for coincidences when they're told to expect them, but Elliot couldn't quell a nagging sense that something else might be stirring. The statistical quirk. 45. Studying the data, Elliot found that these anomalies seemed more frequent when participants explicitly referenced the idea of an external developer or gamer rather than just positive vibes or generic meditation. In other words, calling upon the cosmic coder correlated with a slightly elevated incidence of weird RNG spikes. The effect was minuscule, overshadowed by noise, but repeated enough times to be statistically curious. 46. He coined a phrase for it in his personal notes: invocation-specific anomaly. If a transcendent gamer existed, perhaps direct mention or request, like a gamer's chat handle, was a kind of ping. If the entity was bored or momentarily curious, it might respond with a glitch. Half the time, that glitch would look like sheer randomness, but once in a while, it would be so improbable that it left a faint fingerprint. 47. This idea, of course, was anathema to mainstream science. Elliot didn't blame them. It sounded like an insane cosmic version of, if you say Bloody Mary 3 times in a mirror, something appears. Yet the data was the data, and ignoring it would be unscientific. "We need something bigger," he wrote to Prez, "a more massive experiment that no one can ignore." Project Omega grows. 48. A month in, the user base for Project Omega soared to tens of thousands. A sense of camaraderie formed among participants, a motley network of spiritual seekers, bored office workers, curious skeptics, and wild-eyed conspiracy aficionados. They shared stories, speculated on whether the cosmic gamer might be an alien AI, a bored teenager in another dimension, or the literal biblical god just messing around with a new name. 49th. Mainstream scientists responded with a barrage of debunking articles. Consciousness influencing randomness, pure magical thinking. Transcendent gamer, more like transcendent guffaw. The mocking was relentless, but it only fueled the movement's growth. After all, many people loved the notion that mainstream institutions were too dogmatic to see the truth. 50. One late night, Elliot was analyzing newly compiled results when an urgent email arrived. It was from Artemis again, containing encrypted files. After carefully decrypting them, Elliot read references to government-funded experiments on group-induced probability fluctuations and event type G. The files mentioned clandestine labs that had tested group meditations on quantum decay rates, apparently seeing short-lived deviations from standard physics. If authentic, it indicated that hush-hush research along these lines had been ongoing for years. 51. The email concluded ominously, "What you are doing publicly has been done secretly. But be warned, they do not want public validation. Tread carefully." 52. Elliot's mind spun. If a secret research program had found real anomalies, it made sense they'd keep it hidden, perhaps to avoid academic backlash or to harness the phenomenon for strategic advantage. But if that was true, how far would they go to suppress an outsider's discovery? He felt a chill. Am I risking my career? Or more, he whispered into the silent room. Unlikely allies. 53rd. Undeterred, Elliot shared fragments of the Artemis data with Prez and Jay in a secure chat. The reaction was immediate. Prez hollered about government spooks. Jay worried about black helicopters. Yet they both agreed. The best form of defense was doubling down in the open. More publicity meant more eyes. If an unknown group wanted to shut them down, they'd now have to do it under the harsh glare of public scrutiny. 54. They agreed on a global mega-event, an hour-long synchronized chanting or prayer session to specifically address the cosmic gamer. They'd measure everything from random numbers to local electromagnetic fields in real time. If nothing happened, they'd at least gather robust data. If something did happen, it could be the first truly large-scale demonstration of CRIM. 55. This plan was ambitious and also naive. As the date neared, mysterious phone calls plagued Prez and Jay, threatening legal action, though no official lawsuit materialized. Their YouTube channel faced mass flagging attempts, briefly going offline. Someone wanted them silenced, but they pressed forward. Episode 4. Revelations and Resistance. The Discrediting. 56. The day of the mega-event approached, and mainstream outlets began ridiculing it relentlessly. Cable news ran snarky segments. At 9 p.m. Eastern, a group of keyboard mystics will attempt to ping the cosmic gamer, so if your toaster flares up, you'll know who to blame. Scientists with big Twitter followings declared it a prime example of post-truth nonsense. 57. Elliot braced himself for another wave of professional backlash. Indeed, his department chair at Cambridge summoned him. Professor Meredith Hawthorne delivered the dreaded line, "Your association with these conspiracists undermines the university's reputation. I'm afraid we can't continue your contract." That was it. Years of diligent research overshadowed by a few weeks of unconventional inquiry. 58. Hurt, but ironically liberated, Elliot cleared out his office. "I suppose I'll have more time to focus on Project Omega," he told the professor, forcing a tight smile. She looked at him with genuine pity. "You're throwing away a career for this. I hope it's worth it." 59. As word spread of Elliot's academic fall from grace, Certain corners of the internet championed him as a martyr for open-minded science, while others laughed at him for succumbing to nonsense. Elliot felt a swirl of guilt, excitement, and dread. He put on a brave face and dived headlong into final preparations for the mega event. A strange visitation. 60. The night before the mega event, Elliot was alone in the loft, he and the duo now rented in Dayton. The place still smelled faintly of old grease and dust from its factory days. He was calibrating a newly installed magnetometer when his phone buzzed with a private number call. 61. Hesitantly, he answered. A voice distorted by software spoke. "Stop your experiment. You're meddling with things you don't understand." Elliot demanded the caller's identity. They repeated, "Last warning," and hung up. His hands shook for a while afterward. He replayed the conversation in his mind, uncertain whether it was a well-timed prank or something more sinister. 62. He decided he'd come too far to retreat now. Project Omega was bigger than him. If someone truly wanted to silence them, maybe that only proved they were onto something momentous. Summoning a defiant courage, he resumed his calibrations. Close to discovery. 63. Under the glare of fluorescent lights, Prez, Jay, and Elliot gathered around a battered conference table in the loft. The tension was palpable. In less than 12 hours, they'd attempt the largest mass invocation in recorded history. If the cosmic gamer responded, the data might be so striking that no skeptic could dismiss it easily, or so they hoped. 64. They had multiple sensors ready, 2 quantum RNGs, a magnetometer, a Geiger counter, temperature monitors, and even a microphone set to record the background hum of the place. Volunteers worldwide had promised to run identical setups for cross-reference. Even if local sabotage occurred, the phenomenon might be captured elsewhere. 65. Jay arranged a stack of printouts detailing prayer times across different time zones. He'd posted schedules in 20 languages. Prez, somewhat ironically, had become the logistics guru, sending out newsletters, coordinating the mania on social media. The chat rooms were buzzing with excitement, dread, jokes about server meltdown, and everything in between. 66. Elliot felt a numbness in his stomach. Even if they proved something, the rational part of his mind doubted it would convert many skeptics. The best data in the world wouldn't necessarily overcome deep-seated biases, yet a small, stubborn voice in him whispered that the truth, however bizarre, must be pursued. 67. Just before dawn, a final email from Artemis arrived, carrying an urgent tone. If the cosmic gamer reveals itself on a grand scale, you must be prepared for unforeseen consequences. Interventions are not always benign. The user's motivations remain unknown. That was it. No further explanation. Elliot's nerves jangled at the warning, but he pressed on. Episode 5. Beyond the Surface. The Master Session. 68. The day of the mega event, soon dubbed the Master Session by supporters, dawned grey and overcast in Dayton. Dark clouds hung low, threatening storms as if staging a cinematic backdrop. Across the world, tens of thousands prepared to participate in different time zones. Some donned ceremonial garb, others just sat at their computers sipping coffee. All had the same bizarre objective: to collectively invoke a hypothetical cosmic developer, a transcendent gamer, and see if it would log in to reality. 69. At the designated time, the Project Omega website displayed multiple live feeds, streaming data from RNGs, magnetometers, a whimsical cosmic scoreboard. A chat window scrolled so quickly it was unreadable, filled with everything from fervent prayer to sarcastic jibes. 70. Elliot oversaw the instrumentation in the loft. Prez stared at the main monitor, glancing every few seconds at a digital clock on the wall. Jay tried to keep calm, offering quiet reassurances. The global participant count soared past 80,000, a staggering figure for such a fringe event. Mainstream news outlets had set up their own watchers, more for comedic effect than any serious coverage. Collective focus. 71. At exactly 9 p.m. GMT, the session officially began. A hush settled over many participants' homes or gathering spots. People closed their eyes, chanting or simply focusing on the phrase, "Cosmic Gamer, we call you." In remote Buddhist monasteries, groups of monks joined in, curious if the transcendent gamer might align with their meditative traditions. In a stadium in Brazil, a cluster of local believers who'd rented the space chanted in Portuguese. In a California yoga studio, a circle of practitioners sang mantras. All these small pockets united in a single improbable purpose. 72. For the first half hour, everything was normal. The RNGs churned out near 50-50. The magnetometer showed typical Earth fluctuations. Online, bored skeptics spammed the chat. LOL, Cosmic Gamer is asleep. Where's your glitch now? 73. Meanwhile, an uneasy adrenaline built in the loft. Elliot stole glances at the data streams, feeling a tension akin to waiting for an overdue train. Prez kept muttering, "Come on, Cosmic Dev, show us a sign." Jay fingered a set of prayer beads he'd bought from a thrift store, ironically mixing traditions with zero inhibition. Sudden surge. 74. At the 35-minute mark, the magnetometer spiked, a reading so high it momentarily went off scale. Elliot, jolted from near resignation, scrambled to recheck. The sensor was functioning correctly. Then the RNG feeds jumped, long runs of identical bits, intervals of repeated ones or zeros that soared beyond billion-to-one probability. 75. Gasps and exclamations ripped through the chat. People typed frantic messages. "My lights just flickered." "My phone froze." "Is this real?" Observers on news streams stuttered in disbelief. One anchor awkwardly joked, "If this is a hoax, it's a well-coordinated one." 76. In the loft, Prez cheered, "We got it! This is it!" Jay gaped at the screen. Elliot felt an electric thrill and dread simultaneously. These anomalies surpassed anything they'd recorded before. Even the backup quantum source in Canada displayed the same improbable pattern. Unless a hacker had orchestrated a brilliant infiltration simultaneously across multiple systems, something extraordinary was unfolding. A global glitch. 77. Then the feed flickered as if it had lost connection, only to return with lines of text that scrolled by too fast to read. The chat erupted. "Is that code? What language is that?" Some recognized snippets reminiscent of old arcade game error messages jumbled with random symbols. 78. The entire site went dark for a moment. In that stunned lull, some participants reported hearing a distant hum, though whether it was actual or psychosomatic was uncertain. Others said they felt a sudden drop in temperature, a wave of vertigo, or an indescribable presence. 79. Then, white text on a black background appeared on every connected screen, globally synchronized. NGNX. Copy. Build 0.99, still in beta patch, applied logging out. 80. Silence. The site resumed normal operation. The RNG streams returned to baseline randomness. The magnetometer settled. Chat messages poured in, half in caps lock. What was that? Did we just talk to God? No way this is real. The official streams were ablaze with stunned commentators. A handful of people spontaneously broke into sobs or laughter. 81. Elliot stared, heart pounding. He had hypothesized maybe some glitch or minor anomaly would appear, but a textual message claiming build 0.99 and patch applied was almost too on the nose. It was as if the Cosmic Gamer had typed an in-game console message. But how? The site's open-source code had no such text, and multiple off-site backups confirmed that no one had injected it. The data logs showed no external hack. Immediate aftermath. 82nd. Network news channels that had prepared to sneer were suddenly speechless. Frenzied speculation erupted across social media. Some thought it was a meticulously planned hoax orchestrated by Elliot and the duo. Others saw it as genuine contact from a cosmic intelligence. Conspiracy threads multiplied like rabbits, with theories spanning from CIA mind control experiment to the apocalypse is nigh. 83. The next day, leading scientists lined up to denounce it as an elaborate stunt. Some demanded to see the server logs, which Elliot made fully public. A few insisted the logs were faked. Others found no evidence of tampering, but proposed that a subset of volunteer coders must have collaborated on the trick. Regardless, the mainstream consensus was that it had to be a hoax. People who believed otherwise were labeled gullible. 84. Yet for those who participated, the experience felt too immediate, too personal. In the swirl of confusion, one question loomed. If build 0.99 was correct, then is reality itself an unfinished build? Are we living in an early access cosmic software that the developer occasionally patches? A quiet earthquake. 85. A subtle paradigm shift coursed through thousands of hearts. Churches tried to incorporate the event into theological frameworks. Some pastors insisted it was the devil's deception, others called it an unconventional revelation. New Age gurus churned out e-books interpreting the patch note as a sign of cosmic ascension. Atheist groups ridiculed the whole fiasco. 86. Meanwhile, Elliot, Prez, and Jay were in a daze. They had data logs from sensors worldwide showing a synchronous spike at the exact moment of the build 0.99 message. They fielded interview requests from major networks, but after initial forays ended with them being mocked, they withdrew, focusing on analyzing the data in private. They'd done what they set out to do, glean evidence of an external intervention. Yet the result felt overwhelming, as though they'd summoned a godlike force that left them reeling. 87. Artemis sent one final message. You have it now, an event the world cannot easily forget. But do not assume the user's nature is benevolent. Remember the unpredictability of gamers. They can be cruel or apathetic. Tread lightly. Then Artemis vanished, their email bouncing any further replies. Episode 6. A Glitch in the Cosmos. Gathering Storm. 88. Amid the uproar, multiple governments released statements denying involvement, some forming official panels to investigate potential cyber hoaxes. Tech giants probed whether large-scale hacking might replicate the phenomenon, but they came up empty-handed. The more each group insisted it wasn't them, the more the public's imagination soared. 89th. Prez reveled in the publicity for a while, giving bombastic interviews to fringe podcasts. Jay, conversely, worried about humanity's mental health. Some people were already constructing doomsday cults or claiming the patch signaled an upcoming cosmic reset. Elliot tried to remain measured, analyzing the sensor data that preceded the glitch. He discovered a bizarre wave-like pattern, as though some external signal had cascaded across the network, injecting the text. 90. Meanwhile, intimidation resumed. The YouTube channel was abruptly demonetized, flagged for misinformation. Social media accounts faced mysterious lockouts. Anonymous messages threatened lawsuits or worse. People close to the group claimed to see unmarked vans parked near the loft. Classic men in black stuff, joked Prez, nervously. 91. Elliot's greatest worry was that official institutions would shut them down entirely, or, worse, that some shadowy group would step in with more direct means. He scoured the data for a second vantage point, some cross-check to prove the event was real. Over 200 volunteers had submitted logs from sensors worldwide, almost all showing simultaneous anomalies. Either it was a hoax so vast it defied credibility, or something truly unearthly had occurred. A cosmic glimpse. 92. Exhausted one night, Elliot had a vivid dream. He found himself in a cosmic library filled with shelves of swirling code that formed galaxies. A faint voice laughed softly, as though toying with an elaborate puzzle. He woke drenched in sweat, feeling sure it was more than a simple dream. It was a classic moment of wonder and dread. Could the cosmic gamer, or whatever it was, be taking a personal interest in him? 93. The next day, while reviewing the magnetometer data, Elliot spotted a faint pattern that seemed to repeat every few seconds right before the glitch. If the cosmic gamer was real, maybe it was a debug routine. The speculation felt insane, yet every other explanation was equally unsatisfying. Confrontation at Cambridge. 94. With his academic career already in ruins, Elliot decided to visit Cambridge one last time, hoping to salvage any respect or at least glean the opinions of old colleagues. Most were either wary or pitying. One colleague, Dr. Linda Coltrane, admitted she'd watched the master session. "I hate to say it," she murmured, "but something genuinely inexplicable happened. If it's a hoax, it's the best one I've ever seen." 95. Despite Linda's open-mindedness, the rest of the department ostracized him. He left the campus feeling a bitter mix of nostalgia and betrayal. On the train ride back to the airport, he read the day's headlines. Cosmic Gamer hoax continues, devoted fans see in-game text. Official narratives had congealed around debunking. The fact that the event had no known explanation only fueled more determined skepticism. 96. Seated near a window, Elliot watched fields and towns blur past, pondering the fragile boundary between mainstream acceptance and fringe dismissal. If the cosmic gamer is real, he thought, then the entire scientific worldview must expand to fit it. That won't happen overnight. Turning point. 97. Returning to Dayton, Elliot found Prez and Jay in high spirits. They had discovered a correlation between the glitch timing and a wave of ironically comedic "summon the patch" memes that had circulated just before the event. "It's like the cosmic gamer responded to the meme itself," Prez joked. "We memed reality into a glitch." 98. Elliot tried to remain serious, but a wry grin tugged at his lips. Could the cosmic gamer be so whimsical as to respond to internet memes? If so, it indicated a sense of humor, or at least a capacity to interpret cultural signals. It was an unnerving thought, a cosmic scale figure that occasionally browsed the internet. Episode 7. The Deepening Mystery. New players emerge. 99. Life settled into a tense new normal. The master session had become old news for the mainstream media, though it lived on in conspiratorial circles. Then a fresh wave of interest erupted when an eccentric Silicon Valley billionaire, Leonard Yukimura, publicly announced he was fascinated by the phenomenon. Yukimura ran a major tech firm developing advanced VR simulations, and he was widely rumored to be dabbling in experimental mind-computer interfaces. 100. In a live-stream Q&A, Yukimura stunned viewers by praising Project Omega as the most interesting open-source inquiry into consciousness since the Global Brain Project. He even teased that he might provide funding for more rigorous tests. This endorsement triggered a wave of speculation. Was Yukimura hoping to replicate the phenomenon in a VR environment? Did he want to harness the cosmic gamer's attention? 101. Meanwhile, fundamentalist religious leaders denounced the entire fiasco as an attempt to dethrone God, claiming Elliot and company were heretics. Some of them organized prayer groups to protect humanity from the false gamer deity. Ironically, they also ended up generating large-scale collective focus, which might be precisely the kind of event that, well, pings the cosmic gamer. Artemis returns. 102. Just as Elliot was wrapping his mind around these developments, an encrypted message arrived. Artemis here. My superiors know of your contact with Yukimura. They fear private industries weaponizing a real phenomenon. They might intervene, but a bigger threat looms. If the cosmic gamer can be directly engaged, we risk unpredictable changes to the code. 103. The note ended. I'm sending you a partial dataset from Lab 237, showing what happened the last time a large-scale experiment tried to replicate a glitch with a militarized approach. The results were catastrophic. A zip file followed, heavily encrypted. Elliot's pulse spiked at the insinuation that some secret lab had tried to weaponize cosmic intervention. He spent the next 24 hours decrypting the file with the help of an online cryptography whiz from Germany, known only as Bayes Rider. 104. The files, once revealed, described an experiment codenamed Dark Spiral. The summary recounted that a group of soldiers, trained in remote influence techniques, tried to collectively focus on altering the path of ballistic missiles during a test. The aim, see if probability manipulations could give them a strategic advantage. The file's conclusion stated, experiment ceased after a catastrophic meltdown of guidance systems across multiple drones, leading to friendly fire incidents. Emergent phenomenon deemed unstable. Program decommissioned. Data classified. 105th. Elliot stared at the lines, stunned. If real, it meant the phenomenon might indeed be harnessed in ways that threatened public safety. Perhaps the cosmic gamer, alerted to violent or manipulative intent, responded chaotically, leading to unintended consequences. 106. He shared these findings with Prez and Jay. Prez was outraged. So the military has known about this cosmic glitch potential for years, and they tried to use it? Typical. Jay, unnerved, said quietly, if it's that dangerous, are we playing with fire by continuing Project Omega? Scientific riddle widened. 107. With newly discovered potential dangers, Elliot worked feverishly to refine their approach. He wanted to see if they could measure not just random number shifts, but also any correlation with the emotional or moral tone of the collective focus. He hypothesized that negative or hostile intent might yield more erratic, destructive glitching, whereas benign curiosity or sincere invocation might yield harmless anomalies. It was a wild guess, but worth exploring. 108. They updated the Project Omega site to incorporate optional intent trackers, where participants logged emotional states, intentions, and beliefs. This, of course, fueled immediate outcry from privacy advocates, so they made the data collection optional, anonymized, and purely for correlation analysis. Thousands of participants, fascinated by the possibility, volunteered. 109. Over several smaller sessions, early data suggested a modest but discernible pattern. Higher negativity in the participant group correlated with more volatile sensor spikes, though the sample size was still small. The phenomenon was elusive, random, and partial. Nonetheless, the possibility that the cosmic gamer responded differently to positive or negative focus was a bombshell in the making, if it held up. Behind the scenes. 110th. Unbeknownst to them, a new group was mobilizing in the shadows, a coalition of hardline skeptics, corporate interests, and possibly intelligence agencies, all converging on one goal: shutting down Project Omega. Publicly, they rolled out a smear campaign, painting Elliot as a con artist or mentally unwell. They funneled money to debunker channels, staged comedic stunts, and flagged the site for spurious violations. 111. The group also tried bribes. An intermediary approached Elliot with an offer of a lavish consulting position if he'd publicly renounce Project Omega as a psychological experiment he'd faked. Elliot was tempted. He was broke, after all, having lost his academic post. But he refused, unwilling to bury a phenomenon that had too many unexplained data points. 112th. Tensions rose. Attempted hacking escalated. A minor break-in occurred at the loft, though nothing significant was stolen, likely an attempt to intimidate. Prez took to sleeping with a baseball bat by his bed, half joking he'd whack the men in black if they show up. Episode 8, Expansion and Peril. Resonance Labs. 113. Seemingly out of nowhere, the flamboyant billionaire Leonard Yukimura stepped into the fray, inviting Elliot, Prez, and Jay to visit his cutting-edge resonance labs in California. He pitched it as a well-equipped facility to test the cosmic gamer phenomenon under rigorous conditions. He offered them top-notch instrumentation, high-speed data links, and a staff of open-minded engineers. 114. Jay was hesitant, citing Artemis's warnings about private industry weaponizing the phenomenon. Prez saw an opportunity. Elliot, caught between caution and the desire for advanced research tools, leaned toward accepting. If they could replicate the glitch with better equipment, maybe they'd gather undeniable proof, or maybe they'd end up inadvertently forging a cosmic weapon. The moral quandary weighed heavily. 115. Ultimately, they reasoned that knowledge was neutral. What people did with it wasn't automatically their responsibility. They accepted Yukimura's invitation, but insisted on open-source protocols, so no single entity could co-opt the data for malicious ends. Yukimura agreed, albeit with a cryptic smile that unsettled Jay. Journey to California. 116. The trio traveled by plane, financed by Yukimura. For Prez and Jay, it was their first time flying in years. Jay anxiously watched the clouds, half fearing the cosmic gamer might decide to patch something mid-flight. Prez cracked jokes about debugging the plane's autopilot. Elliot tried to focus on the potential of advanced instrumentation, using a battered laptop to refine sensor calibration specs. 117. They arrived at Resonance Labs, a sleek complex of glass and steel nestled in the hills. A team of engineers greeted them, many wearing T-shirts emblazoned with geeky references to quantum physics and code. Yukimura himself, sporting designer sneakers and an unkempt shock of hair, ushered them to a futuristic control center resembling a cross between a NASA mission control and a Google lounge. 118. The plan was to replicate a smaller-scale mass invocation. Yukimura had arranged a secure, dedicated server cluster. Their RNGs would run on quantum-level random processes, cross-verified by multiple external labs. They'd invite a global audience again, but with a streamlined approach. No public chat window to reduce clutter. Yukimura was all about data purity and controlled synergy. Grand Tech, lingering doubts. 119th. The new experiments began with smaller pilot sessions. They saw mild fluctuations, but nothing extraordinary. Yukimura pressed for bigger events, offering incentives to participants. Digital badges, maybe future VR experiences. But as the marketing ramped up, Elliot felt uneasy. Was Yukimura turning a genuine scientific quest into a commodified spectacle? 120th. Tensions also flared between the old guard of Project Omega, who favored a somewhat spiritual, free-form approach, and Yukimura's team, who demanded data discipline. Prez joked that the lab's engineers had less sense of wonder, while the engineers retorted that the duo were the Pope and Prophet of cosmic LARPing. Elliot tried to broker peace, reminding everyone the central question remained: does an external intelligence occasionally intervene? Weaponization rumors. 121. During a dinner at Yukimura's lavish mansion, a lab tech confided in Elliot that the billionaire had off-the-record talks with military contractors. The rumor was Yukimura wanted to see if the cosmic gamer could selectively manipulate enemy systems. Elliot's stomach turned. If there was any truth to that, he might be enabling the exact scenario Artemis warned about. 122nd. Elliot confronted Yukimura the next morning. The billionaire shrugged. I talk to everyone. Sure, the military asked about it, but I told them we're a transparent, open-source project. No secrets. If they want to run experiments, they can do so in the open like everyone else. Yukimura's expression was disarming, but Elliot noticed a calculating glint in his eyes. This man was no naive philanthropist. Strange tests. 123. Despite misgivings, they proceeded. For a new session, Yukimura insisted on an enormous VR-based invocation. Thousands of participants logged into a custom virtual environment like a giant digital temple, where they collectively chanted lines written by Prez. Jay worried the flamboyance might overshadow the genuine experiment, but Yukimura insisted it was the next level of global synergy. 124. Oddly enough, as the VR participants chanted, the real-world sensors showed faint anomalies. Not as dramatic as build 0.99, but enough for Yukimura to claim success. He gave interviews flaunting his VR platform as the future of reality hacking. Prez and Jay parted ways on how to feel. Prez embraced the excitement, while Jay felt queasy, like they were edging into territory neither science nor mysticism had prepared them for. Episode 9. Ripples of Consequence. A second global glitch. 125. With hype building again, Yukimura convinced them to schedule a second Grand Master session. The problem was that the first Master session had caused widespread mania and left behind confusion. Many had since moved on, bored or disillusioned. Others remained devoted but suspicious of any corporate involvement. 126. So they planned carefully. Elliot insisted that the data be monitored by third-party scientists from various universities who, while skeptical, agreed to provide an unbiased viewpoint, provided they had full oversight of data logs. Yukimura funded their travel and lodging, figuring transparency might help legitimize the event. 127. Soon, a date was set. The Omega VR session, featuring thousands in VR, plus tens of thousands in normal internet streaming, all chanting or focusing on the cosmic gamer for 1 hour. In theory, if a glitch recurred, the presence of multiple professional observers could validate it, potentially the biggest breakthrough in the history of science or spirituality. Government intervention. 128. Days before the event, an official letter from a federal agency arrived at Resonance Labs, a cease and desist order. It cited concerns about public safety, cybersecurity, and the potential for mass psychological harm. Yukimura, outraged, declared it an infringement on free inquiry. Lawyers were summoned. The matter was rushed to a hearing, the outcome uncertain. Meanwhile, internet speculation soared. Was the government trying to hide cosmic truths again? 129th. Elliot recognized the stakes. If the cease and desist took effect, the second master session might be cancelled. On the other hand, forging ahead could provoke deeper legal or clandestine pushback. He recalled the Artemis files about the catastrophic dark spiral experiment. Maybe the government had reasons beyond mere paternalism. Could an uncontrolled glitch cause real-world chaos? 130. In an emergency meeting, the team debated. Prez championed continuing as planned, citing free speech. Jay was torn. The scientists from other universities were also uneasy. No one wanted to risk partaking in something that might inadvertently destabilize systems. Yukimura was defiant, but open to compromise. Eventually, they decided to hold the session on a reduced scale. Fewer participants, shorter time frame, with disclaimers about potential psychological stress. A partial step back from the brink. Legal twists. 131. The hearing turned into a spectacle, with the government lawyer claiming Project Omega fomented irrational mass belief in supernatural events, risking societal unrest. Yukimura's lawyer retorted that the Constitution guaranteed freedom of assembly, even if the assembly was digital chanting. A small protest formed outside the courthouse, carrying signs like, "Let us pray to the patch creator and stop censoring reality's glitch." 132. The judge, looking both amused and exasperated, ruled that the project could proceed under strict conditions: real-time oversight by designated observers, public disclaimers of potential psychological risk, and immediate cessation if any potential hazard to public infrastructure arose. This half-baked compromise left everyone slightly unsatisfied, but it allowed them to proceed, albeit under a microscope. Episode 10. A second master session. The Omega VR session. 133. The scaled-back event arrived. Engineers at Resonance Labs ran final checks. Elliot felt the same sense of dread-tinged anticipation as the first master session. Some global participants wore VR headsets, standing in their living rooms or offices, seeing a vast digital cathedral. Others, lacking VR gear, simply watched from computers or phones, preparing to chant or focus. 134. At the designated hour, the chanting began. Virtual altars glowed inside the VR environment, coded with fractal patterns reminiscent of sacred geometry. People typed or spoke invocations. "Cosmic Gamer, hear us." The sensors flickered on screens, displayed for all to see. For the first 15 minutes, everything was normal. Then, subtle deviations started piling up. A building wave. 135. The quantum RNG in the lab spat out short streaks of improbable runs. The magnetometer twitched. Observers from universities typed frantic notes, some verifying they saw no signs of external hacking. The VR participants collectively felt a rising energy. A portion reported glitchy visuals or sudden lag. 136. Yukimura was in a separate control booth, his brow gleaming with sweat. "We're getting readings," he hissed into a comlink. "Keep going, folks." 137. At minute 20, a swirl of colored light erupted inside the VR cathedral, a digital effect not programmed by the designers. Dumbfounded engineers scoured the system for the source. The code simply displayed unknown texture import. To participants, it looked breathtakingly real, akin to an aurora shimmering in the virtual sky. At the same time, in the real-world lab, a faint luminescence flickered along the edges of monitors, though cameras barely captured it. 138. Elliot's heart hammered. Is the cosmic gamer messing with VR code now? He wondered. If so, it was an unprecedented bridging of real and virtual illusions. Then, silence. 139. Suddenly, everything froze. The VR environment locked up, screens turned dark, the lab lights dimmed. Heartbeats thundered in the gloom. Then, in a rerun of the first master session's shock, lines of text appeared on every connected device: computer, smartphone, VR headset, SQL, copy, execute, patch, 1.0, final build activation, goodbye beta. 140th. Elliot felt an icy thrill. Final build activation. The phrase carried a dreadful finality, as if the cosmic software was about to shift into some next phase, or shut down, or who knows what else. 141. The screens flashed, returning to normal. The magnetometer soared to an off-the-charts reading, then collapsed. The quantum RNG logs vanished from the servers. The entire VR environment code crashed. People around the world shouted in confusion or amazement. 142. Then a single glitch line. Mod restart in progress. 143. The power cut in the lab. The building's backup generators kicked in, but for a moment, everything was draped in darkness. 144. When the lights flickered back, people discovered their computers had rebooted. The VR session was gone, and so was every data log from the last hour. The entire system at resonance labs had been wiped clean. Unfathomable consequences. 145. Panic gripped the lab. Elliot and the scientists from other universities tried to salvage traces of the data, but it was as if a perfect digital eraser had swept through. Off-site backups were also missing that final hour of logs. Meanwhile, participants worldwide reported devices crashing, sometimes factory resetting themselves. A few posted screenshots showing the cryptic lines before their phones died. 146. In the real world, anomalies abounded for minutes afterward. Random blackouts in certain neighborhoods, bizarre radiostatic, elevator malfunctions. The sense was that some massive wave had passed through the digital sphere, rewriting or deleting at will. 147. The big question: what is the final build or mod restart? If the cosmic gamer was truly implementing an update, the entire reality might shift in subtle or drastic ways. 148. Over the following days, the media declared the second session a fiasco. Officially, it was labeled a large-scale hack that had exploited the VR environment, spreading a destructive virus that ironically overshadowed the cosmic claims. Government agencies launched investigations. Yukimura was forced to shut down significant operations to comply with cybersecurity audits. 149. But quietly, a portion of participants insisted something deeper had occurred. Several swore reality felt different, though they couldn't articulate how. Others claimed to see minor changes, geographical data that seemed off, personal recollections that no one else shared, subtle differences in product logos, classic Mandela effect territory. 150. For Elliot, one personal shift was undeniable. The small birthmark on his left forearm had vanished. He noticed it in the shower the next morning. Gone. A trivial detail, but he'd had it since childhood. If it had spontaneously disappeared, was it a sign that the cosmic patch had overwritten some personal detail of his own character model? Episode 11. The Reckoning. Fallout and Fractures. 151st. Resonance labs lay in disarray. The negative press hammered Yukimura's reputation. Investors pulled out, calling him irresponsible. Several staff resigned, wanting no part in the fiasco. In an internal meltdown, Yukimura raged about sabotage, suspecting infiltration by an unknown actor. Elliot, Prez, and Jay found themselves unwelcome as security teams combed the facility for answers. 152. The mainstream pinned the blame on them as well, fueling rumors they orchestrated a viral meltdown for attention. Conspiracy forums soared to new heights of speculation, praising or condemning them as harbingers of the cosmic patch. The swirl of hostility and hero worship left them exhausted. 153. Elliot, his laptop battered beyond repair by the meltdown, salvaged only scraps of personal notes. Prez had lost all his data backups. Jay discovered his phone was bricked. They retreated to a small motel in the outskirts of California, feeling cornered and uncertain. They tried to contact Artemis for guidance, but no response came. Haunted by change. 154. In that motel room, they compared stories with participants who'd reached out privately. Some participants reported intangible off sensations, minor memory discrepancies, or physical differences like new scars. A few insisted they glimpsed flickering code-like overlays in their peripheral vision. Skeptics chalked it up to collective mania. 155. One participant, a Welsh nurse, emailed them about a bizarre shift in the local hospital's records. Patient histories for an entire day had been replaced by question marks. Another reported new constellations in the night sky, though that claim was widely mocked. The scattered nature of these stories made them impossible to verify, yet they converged on the same notion. Something changed after that second glitch. 156. Prez stared wide-eyed at the motel's ceiling. We might have triggered the cosmic gamer to finalize a patch. Could reality be running a new version? Jay shook his head in disbelief. But how do we prove or measure that? Elliot had no answers. The anomalies were ephemeral, scattered, and overshadowed by accusations of hacking. Internal fissures. 157. Frustration simmered between the three. Prez felt they weren't doing enough to publicize the new anomalies. Jay argued that sensationalism had already backfired. Maybe they needed a quiet approach. Elliot, frayed by guilt, half wished they'd never orchestrated the second session. What if we unleashed something unstoppable? 158. Their arguments grew heated. At one point, Prez threatened to go solo with a new channel. Jay accused him of chasing fame. Elliot played peacemaker. The group dynamic, once so strong, teetered on the brink of collapse under the stress. Episode 12. Toward the Unknown. A final message. 159. Late one night, while the trio gloomily scrolled through the torrent of online chaos, Elliot's email pinged. The sender, Artemis. The subject, I told you to be careful. The body, dark spiral is repeating, but on a global scale. The cosmic gamer responded to your calls. The patch is real. Now all we can do is observe the after effects. Some data suggests pockets of reality have been subtly recoded. The official narrative will bury the truth under hacking allegations. Humanity's next step depends on whether we accept the new build or try to revert it. But reversion might be impossible. Good luck. A dot. 160th. The word struck them as both a condemnation and a lament. If reality was indeed recoded, was the cosmic gamer done with them? Or would there be further updates? Deciding what's next. 161st. Freed from illusions of easy redemption or mainstream acceptance, Elliot began drafting a thorough, open-access report detailing everything from the first master session to the second meltdown. He posted it on a distributed network immune to takedowns. The text included disclaimers about the speculative nature of their conclusions, but it also insisted there were genuine anomalies that defied conventional explanation. 162nd. Prez recorded one final unpolished video, tearfully apologizing if their actions had caused distress, but also reaffirming his belief that something bigger than we can imagine had touched our reality. Jay quietly contributed analysis of the minor memory and physical anomalies, calling them Mandela Effects 2.0. He urged calm. We mustn't panic. We adapt, like we always do. 163. Their online following, while smaller than at its peak, remained passionate. The conspiracy corners hailed them as heroes or dupes, depending on perspective. The media mostly moved on to other scandals. Into the mystery. 164. 2 weeks later, the trio parted ways amid hugs, tears, and unresolved tension. Prez insisted on traveling the country, investigating rumored anomalies in person. Someone claimed to see new animals that hadn't existed before. Another found a building gone that had been there last week. He wanted to chase every lead. Jay returned to Ohio, uncertain but wanting a quiet space to integrate all that had happened. 165. Elliot, determined yet uneasy, booked a ticket to Europe. His aim was to approach scientists he knew were quietly open-minded, to see if he could persuade them to at least examine the leftover data from the first glitch. He also felt an inexplicable draw to revisit Cambridge, perhaps to stand on the banks of the River Cam and reflect on how he'd sawed off the conventional academic path. The shocking coda. 166. Days turned into weeks. Life, for most people, trudged on in normal fashion, yet subtle anomalies continued to surface. Some were undoubtedly hoaxes or illusions. Others felt more tangible. 167. One crisp evening, Elliot arrived in England and settled into a budget hostel. Around midnight, while tapping away at his new laptop to check messages from Project Omega survivors, the screen flickered. A snippet of text appeared, unprompted, bold letters on a black background. Hello again, Elliot. Patch 1.0 complete. Stand by for next build. 168th. Heart pounding, Elliot pressed keys frantically, capturing screenshots. But the text vanished as quickly as it came. Could it be a leftover glitch in his laptop's software? A final cosmic sign? Or a hoax from someone messing with him? Either way, he realized with a jolt, the cosmic gamer might not be done yet. 169. The overhead light dimmed, flickered, and stabilized. He noticed, with a sense of déjà vu, that the second hand on the clock froze for a fraction of a second before jumping forward. A small, almost imperceptible stutter in time. Then everything was normal again. 170. Elliot exhaled, trembling. The story's end receded like a mirage. If a new build was coming, reality might shift again, unpredictably. And he had no illusions that he, or any human, could control it. The cosmic gamer was simply too vast, too alien, operating on whims or unknown logic. 171. Perhaps that was the final, inescapable truth. We are denizens of a reality that can be patched at any moment, with or without our invitation. We glimpse the code occasionally, but comprehension remains partial and fleeting. The question is whether we can find meaning, hold on to each other, and carry on, even as the ground beneath us might be rewritten in the next cosmic update. Epilogue. Reflections and Future Echoes. 172. In the aftermath, the world seemed superficially unchanged. Politicians squabbled as usual, new technologies emerged, cultural fads rose and fell. Yet a subtle undercurrent of possibility lingered. The legends of the transcendent gamer had seeded themselves into collective consciousness. Some joked about it at parties, others whispered about it in late-night dorm conversations, and a few fervently integrated it into spiritual frameworks. 173rd. Major science institutions largely dismissed the entire saga, labeling it a cautionary tale of mass hysteria, hacking, and New Age gullibility. But a few iconoclasts quietly studied the anomalies, running their own private experiments, not ready to discard the possibility that consciousness or an external user could provoke improbable disruptions. 174. Meanwhile, hidden in hush-hush labs around the globe, new attempts to replicate or harness the patch phenomenon likely proceeded under greater secrecy. The warnings from Artemis about weaponized glitching hung in the air like smog. If the phenomenon was real, unscrupulous forces might eventually find ways to exploit it, potentially with dire consequences. 175. As for Elliot Braithwaite, he spent years drifting along unconventional research paths, penning a half-dozen papers on emergent anomalies in chaotic systems. They found no reputable journal willing to publish them, so he posted them openly, ignoring academic gatekeepers. He sometimes felt the cosmic gamer's presence in quiet moments, like a developer peering through an invisible window, deciding whether to tweak something. He took comfort in reminding himself that no single viewpoint, be it scientific or mystical, held the entire truth. 176. Preston Carlyle, ironically, became something of a folk hero among fringe communities. He traveled town to town, staging miracle hunts, collecting more tall tales than verifiable data, but providing comedic relief and earnest wonder. He occasionally glimpsed phenomena that defied easy explanation, but nothing quite as dramatic as the master session glitch. Still, he believed wholeheartedly that the cosmic gamer's attention might again focus on humanity, any day, any hour. 177. Jameson Bissett returned to relative quiet in Dayton, resuming a modest job as a research assistant for a local historical society. Yet, in his spare time, he corresponded with small enclaves of meditators and shamans across the globe, trying to find gentler ways to connect with the cosmic layer. He believed that if the user's attention could be tapped carefully, it might bring healing or wisdom instead of chaos, though he was cautious, aware that messing with cosmic code was no small matter. 178. Rumors persisted that Dr. Linda Coltrane at Cambridge sometimes lectured on the borderline between chaos theory and collective illusions, using the master session fiasco as a cautionary example. Yet she would drop cryptic remarks about the small but real anomalies that remain unresolved, prompting students to investigate for themselves if they dared. Final contemplation. 179. And so the story continues to unfold in the collective psyche. Did we truly witness the meddling of a cosmic developer, or was it all a cunning interplay of mass psychology and improbable coincidences? Evidence on both sides remains inconclusive, marred by missing logs, data sabotage, and a swirl of contradictory narratives. 180. But for those who were there, those who felt the hush before the glitch, saw the improbable lines scrawled across their screens, or sensed reality shift beneath their feet, there's no erasing that experience. They carry a stubborn conviction that the world is not a closed system, that cosmic patches can appear from an unaccountable realm, rewriting the laws we cling to. 181. Somewhere, in an unremarkable corner of the world, a laptop might flicker at 3 a.m., briefly displaying text that no operating system should produce. Somewhere, a group of fervent believers might gather in an abandoned church, chanting for the cosmic gamer's attention. Perhaps a mild glitch occurs, a floating orb of light or an impossible reflection. Or maybe nothing happens at all. Until next time. 182. And that is both the terror and the thrill. The cosmic gamer is neither wholly benevolent nor malicious, at least not in any human sense. It's simply operating on a scale of boredom and curiosity beyond our reckoning. And in that fleeting domain of improbable events, we find the seeds of wonder that have haunted philosophers, mystics, and now a handful of conspiracy theorists turned accidental researchers. 183. Whether the next build will arrive in a year, a decade, or the blink of an eye, no one can say. Perhaps reality will continue mostly as is, with only subtle anomalies rippling through the tapestry. Or perhaps we stand at the threshold of an even more shocking patch, some moment where the cosmic gamer hits enter and reboots vast swathes of existence. 184. If that day comes, many will remain skeptics until the end, refusing to see the glitch for what it is. Others, like Elliot Braithwaite, Preston Carlyle, and Jameson Bissett, will greet it with a mix of terror and awe, remembering the improbable messages. Build 0.99 still in beta. Patch applied. Final build activation. They will wonder if the cosmic gamer is simply fulfilling the last stage of an ancient project, tidying up code, readying the cosmos for full release. 185. Or if we, the unsuspecting beta test dwellers, are about to discover that our universe was never the final version at all, just an early iteration that a bored, transcendent developer can discard or evolve at will. And for all our sophisticated science, fervent prayers, or frantic code checks, we remain players in a cosmos we barely comprehend, hopeful that the next patch is gentle, dreading that it might be otherwise, and holding fast to each other in the face of the immeasurable unknown. Author's note on ironic twists, deep shock, and the persistence of wonder. In the end, the chance encounter between two eccentric conspiracy buffs and one open-minded mathematician unveiled something both comedic and profound. Their mania, tempered by genuine curiosity, created a synergy that forced the world, briefly, to consider the unimaginable. Whether or not they truly spoke to a cosmic gamer, they pushed the boundaries of collective belief. They reminded us that science, religion, and conspiratorial speculation share a single root: the burning question, what else is out there? Humor and irony abound in a story where the developers of reality might be capricious. The cosmic gamer, if real, seems less like an omniscient deity and more like a part-time hobbyist popping in with patch updates. This irreverent possibility is at once hilarious, our cosmos a half-baked software sim, and deeply unsettling. If all we call real can be undone or revised by an entity who might not even care about our welfare. Yet amid the confusion, there's a surprising thread of hope. Even if we dwell in a cosmic beta test, our experiences are no less vivid, our relationships no less meaningful. The cosmic illusions of love, empathy, curiosity, and wonder remain real to us, whether coded or not. If the cosmic gamer does check in sporadically, perhaps there is room for a playful or redemptive dimension we can't fully fathom. And maybe, in that very unknowing, lies a powerful human freedom. We can still choose how to respond, whether with cynicism, fear, or, just maybe, with a sense of awestruck acceptance that the world is grander and more confounding than any tidy explanation can contain. Thus, the saga ends, for now, on a profoundly ambiguous note. A swirl of comedic speculation, shocking revelations, scientific perplexities, spiritual yearnings, and the open-ended promise, or threat, of the next patch. Reality might be bigger than any of us suspect, but so too is our capacity to wonder at its endless possibilities. Whether that wonder leads to madness, enlightenment, or cosmic punning is an open question, one that might only be answered when the next line of code quietly rewrites our existence.